All right, let's dive into a rivalry that you've probably seen a million times, maybe without even thinking about it. A rivalry written right on the back of our cars. It's a story of innovation, engineering, and a pretty fierce debate over one of history's greatest achievements.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? You see a car from North Carolina, and boom, first in flight. But then you see one from Ohio, and it says Birthplace of Aviation. So what gives? How can they both be right? Well, the answer to that question kind of gets to the very heart of what it truly means to invent something. So you've got first in flight on one side, and Birthplace of Aviation on the other. See, one is all about that one big splashy moment. The other, it's about the whole long gritty process. And to really get Ohio's side of the story, we got to leave the beach and head to a little workshop in Dayton. Okay, let's get into it. Because the real story of the airplane, it doesn't actually start on a sandy dune. Nope. It was dreamed up, designed, and built, meticulously engineered, right inside a humble bicycle shop in Dayton, Ohio. And here's the thing. The Wright brothers weren't just some random guys working in a shed. They were part of this incredible culture of creation. Back then, Dayton was basically the Silicon Valley of its day. It had more patents per person than any other city in the country. It was just buzzing with new ideas. The perfect place to try and solve an impossible problem, right?
So while all these other folks were out there, literally crashing and burning with this let's just build it and see what happens approach, the Wrights were totally different. They were methodical, they were scientists, and in their shop, they built their own wind tunnel, a simple box, really, to test their ideas scientifically. And what do they find? They figured out pretty quick that all the official data, all the charts on flight that everyone else was using, it was all wrong. Just completely wrong.
And they didn't just test one or two ideas. We're talking over 200 different wing shapes in that little wind tunnel. 200! With every single test, they were building a brand new, correct set of data from scratch. This wasn't some lucky shot in the dark. This was the slow, careful, nitty-gritty birth of aeronautical engineering.
And this slide, right here, this is the core of Ohio's argument. Think about the big puzzles of flight, right? How do you create lift? How do you push it forward? And the big one, how do you control the darn thing in 3 dimensions? The Wrights solved every single one of those problems right there in their Ohio workshop. All of this happened before they even thought about packing up and heading to North Carolina.
So you might be thinking, okay, if they solved it all in Dayton, why even go to Kitty Hawk? Well, Kitty Hawk was the test. It was the proof of concept. It showed the world their machine could lift off the ground. But it was when they got back home to a big open field called Huffman Prairie, just an old cow pasture near Dayton, that they actually taught their invention how to fly. And man, the progress they made once they were back in Ohio was just mind-blowing. In 1903, in North Carolina, they made that first little hop. By 1904, back in Ohio, they were making the first full circle in the air. And by 1905, they had a machine that was actually practical, one you could steer, control, and fly reliably. That's an incredible leap in just 2 years.
Just look at this comparison. It says it all. You go from a flight that lasts less than a minute to one that's almost 40 minutes long. You go from a machine that was barely controllable to one that could do circles and figure eights on command. See the difference? The 1903 Flyer was the, hey look, it works moment. The 1905 Flyer, built and perfected in Ohio, was the world's first practical airplane, period.
Let that number sink in for a second. 24 miles in one flight. That single trip was longer than all of their other 100-plus flights combined. That was the moment. That day, the airplane went from being this weird curiosity to a real, actual vehicle. You could argue the aviation age didn't really start on a beach. It started right there, over a field in Ohio.
And it didn't stop there. It's one thing to invent a plane, but who's going to fly it? So right on that same field, they opened the world's very first flight school. They trained 119 of the world's first pilots. So yeah, Ohio didn't just give birth to the airplane, it gave birth to aviators.
So you see, Ohio's claim isn't just about a bike shop. It's about the entire journey, from the first sketch, to the wind tunnel, to the perfected machine, to the first pilots. And, as you can probably guess, the state of Ohio has made very sure that nobody forgets it.
It's completely baked into the state's identity. It's on the license plates, of course, it's on their state quarter, and they even just recently made the 1905 Wright Flyer III, the practical one, the official state airplane. They're not messing around with this legacy.
And that legacy just exploded from there. Dayton became the absolute nerve center for American military aviation, first at a place called McCook Field, and later at what we now know as Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This is where crucial stuff like the first real parachutes and the technology for flying at night were invented. The heart of aviation innovation, it stayed right there in Ohio.
And for Ohio, yeah, the sky was definitely not the limit. That same spirit, that same culture of engineering genius and guts, it produced this unbelievable line of astronauts. We're talking about John Glenn, the very first American to orbit the Earth, and Neil Armstrong, the first human to walk on the moon, both from Ohio.
Get this, a whopping 24 NASA astronauts come from Ohio. That's why the state quarter is so specific. It says Birthplace of Aviation Pioneers, plural. It's a direct line. You can trace it all the way from that bike shop in Dayton straight to those first footprints on the moon.
Okay, but this isn't just some dusty old history lesson. The foundation that was built in that workshop more than 100 years ago, it is absolutely shaping the future of flight right now.
Today, Ohio is an absolute powerhouse in aerospace. It's a top supplier to both Boeing and Airbus. It's got the NASA Glenn Research Center. It's the headquarters for GE Aerospace, which makes jet engines for the whole world. That little bike shop has grown into a massive global industry.
And now, the story is really coming full circle. What's the next big thing in flight? Electric air taxis, what they call advanced air mobility. And where are they building these things? Right back in Dayton. A whole new generation of aviation pioneers are coming back to where it all started, drawn by that incredible legacy.
So maybe this is the best way to put it. Kitty Hawk, that was opening night, the big premiere. It was spectacular. But Dayton, Ohio, that was the writer's room, the design lab, the rehearsal studio. It was a place where the whole masterpiece was actually written and perfected.
And that kind of leaves us with one big question to chew on. What truly defines the birthplace of an invention? Is it the first big public splash? Or is it the quiet, often overlooked workshop where the thing was actually figured out and perfected? Something to think about for sure. Thanks for tuning in.